Dark Knights of Steel issue 1, Tom Taylor writing with Yasmin Putri on the art. Where is my tabular device? Here it is. So I can look at the comic as we talk about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so this is your Tom Taylor mini maxi.
Yep.
12
It's
issues.
a maxi set in a world of fantasy, but with superheroes.
Well, it's an alternate reality. It's just an alternate take on the DC characters who are all in this world. And the book opens with, familiar stuff, which is, the L's on Krypton. It's about to blow up, and they're sending the rocket off. But the twist is when the rocket arrives, not only is it in, in the past or in a fantasy world or whatever you want to call it, the both of them are in the rocket, and she's not given birth yet. So this is a version where both Jor-El and Lara have landed on Earth.
Yeah.
And
Clark's born on this planet. So I don't want to call it Earth, but for lack of a better.
I mean, Earth, just because I don't know what else to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And he's born there with them, and that's I remember turning that page and going, oh, they're all there. That's cool. That's a nice. Because how many alternate reality tales have we seen where the ship makes it with baby Kal-El, right? But everything else is the same until it lands somewhere new, right?
Like Russia.
Yeah, Russia. Or I remember there's one, I haven't read it, but it's Tarzan, but with Superman. So it lands in the jungles, and he's raised by apes. So seeing the whole family this time was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, the opening's pretty exciting. A bunch of knights storm up on horses, thinking that these people are demons because they fell from the sky, because superstition and all that. And Jor-El's trying to hold them back, and without really meaning to, because he doesn't know what his powers are, they've just landed. He just blasts them with heat vision, and that full page spread of just like all the burned grass and the charred remains and a couple of helmets as they're embracing it, the little ship holding their baby who's just popped out. Because that's how you describe a birth, right? They just pop out.
Yeah, they just pop out. Being in their hair.
It's a little plop.
Yep.
Little plop. And before we jump ahead, though, to what I'll call present day, relative.
Yeah.
We do get like a glimpse that Jefferson, as in Black Lightning, is already like a king in this world. And there's a drunk Constantine who is blubbering prophecies about demons coming.
Not just a drunk Constantine. He's a early teens.
Yes.
At best, Constantine.
Yeah, so they've got like a prophet noting down everything he says because it seems like it might be important. So it just sets up that he's going to be possibly an antagonist, and then it skips 19 years later where we meet, 19-year-old Superman, basically. But Bruce Wayne's there, and it sort of reveals throughout the book what Bruce's like version of is in this.
Yeah, so we get an Alfred, right? That's kind of, this older guy that is his, not a chaperone, but he's, his assistant, right? And then we also see Robbins, and he's got like this little group of kids that assist him on his mission. And I was like, this is all fun Bat Mythos stuff. And he's like this Black Knight. His armor has the ears on it, and he's very much Bruce Wayne still. Like, and I'm like, oh, so what happened? I mean, we've seen the Superman origin. So how different is Bruce's origin here? Like, was there still like a robbery that went wrong with these nobles or whatever? But he's, basically Batman for all intents and purposes, but, with a suit of armor and a horse instead of a Batmobile.
Yeah, and he's got Robins who are working with him, but his job seems to be protecting the Superman family. He's there to protect the L's from their one weakness, which is not kryptonite. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that kryptonite isn't going to pop up later, because it might. But at least as of right now, they only seem to know that their weakness is magic. And not just magic, possibly just other superpowers in general.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That magic here seems to be defined as other superpowers, because we meet the Banshee, and I don't want to spoil who that is just yet, but that person might have a superpower versus magic powers. Normally.
I mean, as it goes, because it's okay. So Batman's protecting, and they don't call him Batman, obviously. They just call him Bruce Wayne.
No.
But like he's protecting the L's. Jor-El seems to have a lot of respect for him. Even says Bruce should be the one sitting on the throne, not Cal. Bruce should be sitting on the throne, and that raises some interesting questions. Which
to me, that said that Cal's a little bit too much of the people, right? He's a little bit too caring, which is kind of Superman, and that Bruce is the one that he can make the tough decisions when that time comes, and that's the vibe I was getting there, and I was like, that's kind of in line with Jor-El, the whole man of science kind of deal. And that's also what I get from their kingdom. It's very, not so much science, but logic. And everything seems to be, medieval versus fantasy, whereas we saw with Black Lightning, that kingdom seems to be more of the, magic superpowers. Like he's leading it and he has the, lightning surrounding him and stuff. And almost as if when the L's had showed up with their superpowers, that kind of disrupted whatever they had going on. Just everything from these few short pages in, you're just getting, feels like a very tactile world. Like King and Putri have done a great job.
There's a lot going on, but to go back to Bruce being the one to take the throne, we find out that in this world, the Waynes are dead, but there's a little bit more going on there in that Batman keeps being referred to as the bastard. Everyone keeps calling him the bastard child, and everyone knows he's a bastard. And it's like, okay, so what exactly, were the Waynes just not married? What's going on? And then we find out later in the issue that Jor-El admits to him that he is actually Bruce's father, and that's why, because there's a little bit of a mystery when they go after this Banshee. He survives something that should kill him, and he doesn't know why he survived. And he's even questioning, like, am I also magic? Should I? Because Bruce's stance on magic, which, again, could just be superpowers, they're just defining everything as magic. He thinks, well, that's illegal. We should banish everyone who has magic or superpowers, so therefore I should be banished. I am now a villain. I am now someone who should not be trusted.
Yeah.
And Gerald's like, no. You survive because you're my son, and because you have Kryptonian blood in you, and that's why you have. So presumably, we're going to see Bruce develop a full set of powers, perhaps, as this goes on.
I mean, it kind of hints it towards the end here.
Yeah. Super interesting stuff. Obviously this is just playing with every bit of mythology. It's not adhering to anything from what we expect or know from the DC universe, which is totally fine.
So, which leads me to talk about the Banshee, so I'm thinking, Superman, right? They're doing Superman, Banshee. It's Silver Banshee. We're going to get there, magic, whatever. And so Clark or Cal and Bruce, or it's Bruce that goes, right? At first with the Robins.
Cal doesn't go. Cal shows up right at the end when everything's going down, but he's not supposed to go. But it's just Bruce and the Robins and Alfred that are going.
Right.
We get to see Dick, Duke, Cass, and Jason.
And Bruce hints that there's another Robin that's in the court of Black Lightning, who we could probably assume is Tim, but it could be Barbara, for all we know.
Maybe Cass. Cool. I know Cass is technically not a Robin, but it feels like all of them are considered Robins in this.
Mm-hmm. I feel like any of the younger partners are classified as a Robin here, which is cool. And I like the one that was in the bar with the Banshee was Jason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that locates. So that's kind of fun with that. And so it would not be a Tom Taylor book, right? Without an appearance by Black Canary, who ends up, that's who the Banshee is. And I felt like, not like a fool, but like, he got me.
And I didn't recognize her. It wasn't until she said her name was Dinah, because she's just a blonde woman. Like, there's nothing to give her away. That said, though, because she starts off with like a bed sheet over it, when she does actually get up. If I have a critique about this book, right? Because I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm not a big fantasy guy, but it's doing fun stuff with the characters and the characters we know and sort of twisting the mythology. I'm having a good time. But if I have one critique, is that I do think there's the odd character whose costume design doesn't feel different enough. Because when Black Canary stood up and I saw what she was wearing, I'm like, this is just Like, she's not wearing a leather jacket, but other than that, this is just her costume. I didn't get anything like unique about it. There was no like twist on it. Obviously Batman, like his helmet feels like a helmet, right? With you know, with the bat ears and stuff. But it didn't really feel all that different. I guess I felt kind of similar with Steph as well. If it kind of felt like, this really is almost just her outfit that we normally see.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. It has more of a corset vibe than her typical, but I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, there's just a few of the outfits feel like they're not different enough from normal. But I mean, it's a minor quibble. It's not a huge deal. It's just it was something that was sticking out to me a little bit as I was. Once I got to Dinah, I was kind of like, that just looks, you know, she's got a couple of extra lines on her outfit, which maybe imply that it's more armored perhaps than a tank top. But it still just looks like a fancy tank top.
Right. No, you're right. In the jean short kind of vibe. You know, there's no fishnets or anything, but the short shorts are there.
Yeah.
Especially when she unleashes the cry. This just looks like a Justice League page. You know. Oh,
for sure. Yeah. It is a good page. There's obviously the art is really solid though. Like, I mean, I'm critiquing the designs a little bit, but the actual art quality is very high.
Yeah, there's not much else to critique when it comes to the art, because even the way that it flows, the layouts, the colors, everything just works. Like, the muted tones really make all the costumes kind of pop out a little bit better. So, like, when Harley shows up and she's in her black and red up against the kind of drab castle settings, it really looks good.
Yeah,
even that scene. But
what I was just going to say, one of the touches I like in the coloring is that when Bruce and Cal go to speak to the elves in their like throne room, there was just this golden glow behind them the entire time and throughout that scene. So it does that thing, and I always appreciate this in comic books where it really does. You can sort of tell the scenes apart at a glance just because the coloring in the background just gives each one a different tone, and I kind of appreciate that. And then likewise, when Jor-El goes up to speak to Bruce on the roof of the castle, like, everything goes blue because there's lightning, which has got a bit of a double meaning because we also know that lightning is representative of Jefferson, right? And I'm not saying that this lightning strike is Jefferson. I'm just saying it's like a foreshadowing, like, Jefferson's out there. He's kind of our villain,
Right. It says the lightning strikes after Bruce says, "I believe I'm cursed." And from what we've seen with how they feel about magic and whatnot, and how that's tied to Jefferson, it is a thematic motif.
Yeah, they actually
I hope it continues.
So they refer to a Green Man a couple of times throughout the issue. Now, obviously, when we get to the end, we kind of know who they're talking about. But my first thought was Martian Manhunter. I'm not gonna lie. That was the first person that came to mind.
I thought Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
because
we were both wrong.
There's a concept in European folklore of a Green Man that is very much. I'm wondering how much Alan Moore borrowed from for Swamp Thing, because there's just so much how they represent the forest and the trees and all that type of stuff. That's what I was thinking. But again, staring us kind of in the face.
Yeah. We actually technically we get multiple people who could be considered Green Men in a way. But we go to the forest and Green Arrow's like on a branch in a tree, and he's not the Green Man. The Green Man's a Green Lantern. Now we don't get to see exactly
which one.
And the way they talk about the magic of the ring, like the glove looks more like a Silver Age Green Lantern, but at the same time, if it's more magic based, it's like, well, that sounds more like an Alan Scott ring.
Could be. I thought maybe Sinestro.
Yeah.
Because keeping him in the shadow, we wouldn't know, and he was a Green Lantern, right? So
yeah. I mean, they're intentionally obscuring it so we don't know which one it is, but basically, the Green Lantern, whoever it may be, engulfs the arrow that Oliver's going to fire with Green Lantern magic or energy, and so this arrow will pierce an L. So sure enough, the book ends with Jor-El getting a green arrow to the eye. And like you said, there's a tease at the end with Bruce's heat vision seemingly about to kick in, with the full lightning strike behind him. So it really feels like everything's like really starting to like kick off, and there's this is the first shot across the bow, as it were. I had fun with a lot of this. It's one of these weird things where if you told me before I'd read this, like, the premise of this book is that Clark and Bruce are going to be half brothers, and
Mhm.
like Jor-El got it on with Martha at some point, and
Yeah.
like it probably would sound quite bad. Like if you just told me some
Yeah.
of the concept of this, it would probably sound kind of shit.
Yeah, and we're gonna have kind of like a superhero war, right? Like
Mm.
so far we haven't met any proper villains. It doesn't seem like, there's a Lex Luthor or a Joker or anything
Oh,
like
I
that.
bet we see some at some point. There'll be a reason.
Oh yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
talking just early on, and you're just like, oh, Jor-El is a king, and Bruce is his bastard son, and Jefferson Pierce is the king of a rival kingdom. That you're just like, what? That's crazy. But then the way that it all plays out, it's just fantastic.
I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that one of the big themes of this is going to be prejudice and superstitions and all that kind of thing. Like, this idea of anyone who has a superpower being instantly outlawed is very X-Men-y, and I'd be very curious. It's very hypocritical as well, given that your rulers have more superpowers than anyone else. And
that's why it's to preserve the status quo.
Of course. Well, I mean, they kind of explain it. Jor-El explains it in the book as he lost his planet, so he's so determined to keep his family safe that he's ruling with a relative iron fist. And I think what's interesting about this issue is that it kind of does a balancing act where there's points where I'm like, oh, the elves look straight up villains, are they the evil rulers that are going to have to be taken down, where I'm going to be rooting for, like, Black Canaries and characters like that to take them down. But honestly, it kind of skirts this line where they still kind of feel like fairly nice people for the most part, even though they do have some of these weird policies about, oh, anyone with the superpowers, like, instant, they need to be taken down and locked away or killed or whatever. So it does feel like it's kind of playing this fine line where maybe we're going to sympathize with both sides of the conflict, but we'll see how it plays out.
Knowing Tom Taylor, though, I feel like it's going to be like, hey, ruling classes suck. The only way to be free is to govern yourself, and maybe that's the whole point. I don't know. Maybe all the Regals have to go.
If Bruce goes, angry with his powers, right, and it's just that have just kicked in, this might be the first time they've done evil Superman but he's actually Batman.
And that's where this is actually a backdoor to a dark multiverse, and this is the darkest of nights.
What he's actually
we already have the darkest night.
What Taylor's actually doing here is just doing another spin on Injustice. This is Injustice, like
Batman, though. Yeah.
2.0. Well, I that's what they actually called the second series, Injustice. So don't call it that, but you know what I mean. But yeah. So we see Harley as the jester, and her interaction with Bruce is amusing. So. No, this flowed really well. It read super quick, and I felt like it was introducing me to a lot of ideas in a very nicely paced out way that didn't feel overwhelming. And I feel like I understand this world so far, and I'm in. So I think the fact that it's fantasy, but because it's like no, it's really just the superpowers that we're used to that are being considered as magic by and large, and how they're reacting to this as like, oh, you must be, witches and whatnot because you have powers. Is quite interesting to me. So, no, good. What are you rating Dark Knights of Steel issue 1, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 9. I thought it was really strong. So.
Oh, I don't know if I can go quite that high. You're a bit trigger happy with the 9s.
It's got Tom Taylor and fantastic art. What else am I supposed to do?
I know. I am going to go with 8.5. I'll say 8.5. You know what? The quality's high enough that I think it justifies it. It's funny because the premise at face value shouldn't really work for me, but so far it is because it's.
Yeah, to be honest, I was a little bit worried, just because I know how you are with fantasy stuff. But once it started doing certain things, I was like, oh, he might end up liking this. But yeah, so you being that positive actually is more surprising.
It's because it's just playing upon like these characters and who they are through a lens. I mean,
right?
if it starts relying on like digging into other mythology or lore, then I might drop out fast. But
yeah,
as of right now, I have no reason to not like kind of enjoy what it's doing.
No, and it does stuff where, of course, Canary's on there, and she's probably together with Green Arrow, and of course they're the ones that are siding against the, oppressors, if you will. That's kind of what Green Arrow does. So, of course he's okay with taking out the L's. So, but yeah, no, it's really good, man. Tom Taylor can just keep going.